recent years, the American dream of homeownership has increasingly become just that. A dream especially for the middle class. Spiraling rent costs, stagnant wages, and the aftermath of economic fluctuations have all converged to create a precarious situation where the average middle-class American finds it increasingly difficult to afford rent in many parts of the country. This paper intends to explore the underlying causes of this affordability crisis, its implications on the fabric of American society, and potential policy solutions to mitigate its impact. It is a pressing issue that calls for immediate attention, as the ability to secure stable housing is foundational to the well-being of individuals and communities alike. Point 1. A more affordability crisis. The escalating unaffordability of rental housing in the United States has precipitated a profound crisis, rendering the attainment of modest accommodations an increasingly elusive prospect for a substantial segment of the middle class. The staggering disparity between the average hourly wage required to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment, standing at $21.21, and the national average wage of $16.38, underscores a disconcerting reality where a sizable portion of middle-class renters grapple with the daunting challenge of securing affordable housing. This crisis engenders a multifaceted impact, permeating socioeconomic dimensions and crystallizing the acute financial strain experienced by individuals and families striving to secure stable and affordable housing amidst an environment characterized by soaring living costs and constrained income. At the crux of the affordability crisis lies the pervasive discrepancy between the steadily increasing cost of rental housing and the stagnation of income growth among the middle class. The average hourly wage required to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment eclipses the national average wage, presenting a formidable barrier that impedes middle-class renters from accessing housing options commensurate with their financial means. This disconcerting trend has precipitated a stark reality where 51% of middle-class renters are confronted with the stark reality of being unable to secure affordable housing, amplifying the overarching strain and financial precarity afflicting a significant swath of the middle class. The confluence of soaring housing costs and stagnant income growth has engendered a pronounced strain on the financial well-being of middle-class individuals and families, undermining their capacity to attain stable and affordable housing. The escalating unaffordability of rental housing not only delineates a formidable economic hurdle, but also reverberates as a social and systemic challenge, proliferating financial stress and housing instability within the middle-class demographic. This crisis has accentuated the precariousness of achieving housing security for a substantial segment of the middle class, unraveling as a profound manifestation of systemic inequities and economic disparities pervading the contemporary landscape. Furthermore, the burgeoning unaffordability of rental housing emerges as a salient exemplification of the systemic fissures and structural barriers that impede equitable access to housing within the United States. The pronounced discrepancy between income levels and housing costs underscores a fundamental imbalance that perpetuates housing precarity and financial strain among middle-class renters, thereby underscoring the pertinence of addressing systemic inequities and instituting comprehensive measures to foster housing affordability and financial stability for the middle class. Point 2. Middle class squeeze. The pervasive disparity between the burgeoning costs of essential goods and services, especially housing, and the stagnation of wage growth has precipitated a profound squeeze on the financial well-being of middle-class individuals, rendering the attainment of sustainable living spaces an increasingly unattainable aspiration. This socio-economic quandary underscores a resonant reality where the middle class grapples with the enduring strain of maintaining socio-economic stability and securing affordable housing options amidst an environment fraught with escalating living costs and constrained income growth. The substantiated reports from diverse sources, including the Harvard University's Joint Center for Housing Studies, illuminate the sobering predicament facing Americans, particularly the middle class, as they contend with the mounting challenge of paying rent, underscoring an acute financial strain that encumbers households across the socio-economic spectrum. The disconcerting trend of diminishing affordability pervades the housing landscape, impacting tenants with varying income levels, thereby crystallizing a systemic issue that transcends economic boundaries and permeates the social fabric, eroding the foundational pillars of financial stability and housing security for the middle class. The intersection of stagnant wage growth and the soaring costs of essential goods and services, prominently exemplified by housing, has culminated in a pronounced erosion of savings and financial resilience among middle-class individuals. This confluence of economic pressures has engendered a profound constriction on the capacity of the middle class to preserve their socio-economic standing and secure viable city living spaces, delineating a stark reality where the pursuit of stable and affordable housing becomes increasingly untenable, amplifying financial precarity and housing instability within this demographic. Moreover, the disquieting revelation that the typical renter can no longer afford the median rent in 90 cities across the United States, as evidenced by Zillow's analysis, underscores the systemic nature of the affordability crisis, permeating diverse geographic locales and accentuating the pervasive impact of constrained housing affordability on middle-class households. This sobering reality underscores the multifaceted implications of the unaffordability predicament, positioning it as a systemic challenge that reverberates across a spectrum of dimensions, encompassing economic viability, social well-being, and access to stable housing options for middle-class individuals and families. Point 3. High living costs. Reports from reputable institutions such as Harvard University's Joint Center for Housing Studies and analysts at Zillow underscore a disconcerting trend. The burden of renting has become increasingly insurmountable for a significant portion of the middle class. This predicament is exacerbated by the broader economic landscape, where stagnant wage growth collides with escalating living costs, perpetuating a pervasive strain on middle-class individuals and families as they endeavor to secure stable. The analysis from the University of Texas further compounds this dieting narrative, suggesting that an annual income of approximately $300,000 is requisite to sustain a comfortable middle-class lifestyle. This figure encompasses essential expenditures such as gasoline, food, housing, travel, tuition, and healthcare. The pronounced magnitude of this income threshold underscores the formidable financial barriers confronted by the middle class, particularly in densely populated urban areas where living costs are notably elevated. The dire implications of these findings resound as a clarion call to confront the systemic challenges unraveling within the housing landscape, necessitating comprehensive solutions aimed at rectifying the pronounced disparities and fostering equitable access to affordable housing for the middle class. The confluence of soaring housing costs and restrained income growth has engendered a profound squeeze on the financial well-being of middle-class individuals, undermining their capacity to maintain socio-economic status and secure viable city living spaces. This precipitates a multifaceted impact, permeating socio-economic dimensions and crystallizing the acute financial strain experienced by individuals and families striving to attain stable and affordable housing amidst an environment characterized by exorbitant living costs and constrained income. The burgeoning unaffordability of rental housing not only delineates a formidable economic hurdle, but also reverberates as a social and systemic challenge, proliferating financial stress and housing instability within the middle-class demographic. This crisis has accentuated the precariousness of achieving housing security for a substantial segment of the middle class, unraveling as a profound manifestation of systemic inequities and economic disparities pervading the contemporary landscape. Moreover, the revelation that the typical renter can no longer afford the median rent in 90 cities across the United States, as reported by Zillow, underscores the pervasive nature of the affordability crisis, permeating diverse geographic locales and accentuating the enduring impact of constrained housing affordability on middle-class households. This sobering reality underscores the multifaceted implications of the unaffordability predicament, positioning it as a systemic challenge that reverberates across a spectrum of dimensions encompassing economic viability, social well-being, and access to stable housing options for middle-class individuals and families. Point 4. Impact on budgets. The escalating cost of housing in the United States has precipitated a profound and far-reaching impact on the budgeting dynamics of households, particularly those nestled within the middle-class demographic. This economic conundrum not only underscores the acute affordability crisis pervading the housing sector, but also delineates the cascading effects on essential expenditure categories such as food and healthcare. The stark reality that US households are compelled to spend significantly less on vital needs, 41% less on food, and an astonishing 71% less on healthcare, illuminates the grave ramifications of the housing affordability crisis on the overall well-being and financial stability of middle-class Americans. Furthermore, the revelation that approximately 51 million households find themselves unable to afford a basic monthly family budget encapsulates the pervasive economic strain exerted by exorbitant housing costs, underscoring a critical societal challenge that demands urgent attention and comprehensive solutions. The disproportionate allocation of household budgets towards housing expenses, necessitated by the soaring cost of rental and owned accommodations, erodes the financial capacity of families to allocate sufficient resources towards other essential needs. This skewed expenditure pattern not only compromises the nutritional and health standards of affected households, but also exacerbates the socioeconomic disparities that underpin the broader affordability crisis. The substantial reduction in spending on food and healthcare signifies a distressing trade-off, where the pursuit of stable housing inadvertently precipitates a decline in living standards and a heightened vulnerability to food insecurity and health-related adversity. This precarious balancing act within household budgets reflects a deeper systemic issue, wherein the middle class grapples with the enduring challenge of reconciling the escalating costs of living with stagnant or modestly growing incomes. The financial strain induced by unaffordable housing necessitates a re-evaluation of budget priorities, compelling households to make difficult decisions that may have long-term implications on their socio-economic well-being and quality of life. The dire statistics indicating that a significant portion of US households cannot afford a basic monthly family budget underscores the urgency of addressing the multifaceted dimensions of the housing affordability crisis, highlighting the necessity for targeted interventions aimed at alleviating the economic pressures on middle-class families. The pervasive impact of the housing affordability crisis on household budgets and the consequent reductions in spending on vital needs such as food and healthcare underscore the interconnectedness of housing stability with broader aspects of socioeconomic security and well-being. The alarming rates at which households are forced to curtail essential expenditures reveal a grim reality where the quest for affordable housing becomes a determinant factor in shaping the overall health and nutritional status of communities. This situation calls for a holistic approach to tackling the affordability crisis, encompassing not only housing policy reforms, but also broader socioeconomic strategies aimed at enhancing income growth, reducing living costs, and ensuring equitable access to essential services. Point 5. Housing market strain. The middle class, who find themselves ensnared in an increasingly precarious situation. This demographic, traditionally viewed as the backbone of the economy, is facing an affordability crisis that not only challenges their ability to secure rental housing, but also threatens their overall socioeconomic stability. The scarcity of affordable housing has become a pervasive issue, affecting not just the very poor but also those with decent jobs. This group finds themselves caught in a gap, unable to qualify for subsidized housing yet unable to afford market prices, exacerbating the housing crisis and underscoring a systemic failure to accommodate the housing needs of a significant portion of the. This predicament is illuminated by recent findings from Harvard University's Joint Center for Housing Studies, which highlight the struggle of Americans to pay their rent amidst soaring prices. The Washington Post further elaborates on the issue, noting that rent has never been less affordable for tenants across income spectrums, even as the costs for new leases begin to stabilize. Such reports underscore the gravity of the situation, revealing the widespread impact of housing inflation and its repercussions on rental affordability for the middle class. The analysis by Zillow reveals a particularly alarming trend, finding that the typical renter can no longer afford the median rent in 90 cities across the United States. This stark reality reflects the growing disconnect between wage growth and housing costs, leaving many middle-class families in a precarious financial position. As real estate prices soar and wages stagnate, the dream of homeownership, and even the ability to afford decent rental accommodation, slips further out of reach for the middle class. This is further echoed by discussions on platforms like Reddit, where users lament the challenges faced by middle-class individuals in affording housing, often comparing their struggles to those historically associated with lower-income groups. Point 6. Chain reaction of inequality. This domino effect, precipitated by the scarcity of affordable housing options, manifests in a troubling scenario where middle-class individuals, in their quest for housing within financial reach, inadvertently occupy spaces that traditionally would have been accessible to lower-income persons. This dynamic not only underscores the profound challenges faced by those struggling to secure stable housing, but also highlights the intricate interplay between housing affordability and broader patterns of inequality. At the heart of this dilemma is the stark reality that the housing market, in its current state, fails to adequately cater to the diverse needs of the American populace. As middle-class families and individuals are priced out of sectors of the housing market traditionally within their reach, they find themselves competing for units in more affordable segments, thereby exerting upward pressure on prices in these sectors and inadvertently displacing lower income. This displacement is not merely a matter of physical relocation, but signifies a deeper entrenchment of socio-economic barriers, further limiting access to opportunities for wealth accumulation and socio-economic mobility for those at the lower end of the income spectrum. The implications of this housing dynamic extend beyond individual hardships, contributing to a broader landscape of systemic poverty. As lower-income individuals and families are displaced or find it increasingly difficult to secure affordable housing, they are often relegated to less desirable neighborhoods, characterized by limited access to quality education, healthcare, employment opportunities, and other critical resources. This spatial segregation perpetuates cycles of poverty and inequality, as marginalized communities face compounded challenges in striving for socioeconomic advancement. Moreover, the phenomenon of middle-class individuals occupying lower-cost housing options illuminates the inadequacy of current housing policies and the urgent need for comprehensive strategies that address the root causes of the affordability crisis. Without targeted interventions aimed at expanding the supply of affordable housing and ensuring equitable access for all income groups, the cycle of displacement and inequality is likely to persist, reinforcing structural barriers that impede social mobility and widen economic disparities. The chain reaction of inequality triggered by the lack of affordable housing options also raises critical questions about societal values and priorities, challenging stakeholders across the public and private sectors to reimagine approaches to housing development, urban planning, and economic policy. It calls for a collective re-evaluation of the mechanisms by which resources are allocated and the ways in which communities are structured, advocating for a paradigm shift towards inclusivity, equity, and sustainability in housing solutions. Point 7. Societal implications. The implications of this crisis are profound, laying bare the inadequacies of current policies and the urgent need for innovative solutions. The growing gulf between economic classes, exacerbated by the housing affordability crisis, is a clarion call for introspection and action within the realms of public policy, community planning, and national discourse. It challenges the efficacy of existing measures and the commitment of leadership at all levels to forge pathways toward a more equitable and sustainable future. Moreover, the housing crisis serves as a mirror reflecting the broader issues of systemic poverty, access to quality education, healthcare disparities, and the erosion of the middle class. These intertwined challenges demand a holistic approach to governance and policymaking that prioritizes the well-being and economic security of all citizens. The persistence of these issues, coupled with the perception of ineffective leadership, underscores a critical juncture in American society, where the decisions made today will shape the socio-economic landscape for generations to come. In addressing the housing and rental crisis, there is an opportunity to rethink the foundational aspects of American society, including the distribution of wealth, the role of government in ensuring housing stability, and the mechanisms by which economic mobility is facilitated or hindered. This requires a concerted effort to bridge divides, foster dialogue, and implement policies that reflect the collective aspirations of a diverse populace. The path forward entails not only addressing the symptoms of the housing affordability crisis, but also tackling the root causes of economic inequality and social disenfranchisement. In conclusion, the housing affordability crisis is not just an economic issue, but a multifaceted challenge that touches on fundamental aspects of social justice, urban planning, and the American dream. It unveils deep-seated inequalities and calls for a comprehensive re-evaluation of our societal priorities and policy formulations. Addressing this crisis requires innovative thinking, collaborative efforts among various stakeholders, and a firm commitment to equitable and inclusive growth. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this pressing issue. How do you think we can tackle the housing affordability crisis to ensure everyone has access to safe, affordable housing? Leave your ideas and solutions in the comments below. And if you found this discussion insightful, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis on topics that matter to you. Together, we can foster a dialogue that moves us toward a more equitable society.